Baby Nee is missing. The world seems to stop for Tu Diep and CEO James as panic floods their hearts. The laughter that once filled their home has been replaced by a deafening silence, and every ticking second feels like an eternity. With trembling hands and tear-filled eyes, they search every corner, clinging to the fragile hope that somewhere, somehow, a miracle is waiting to guide them back to their little girl. Will love and fate lead them to Nee before it's too late? The evening sky bled into shades of crimson and violet as the wind whispered through the bamboo grove behind the farmhouse. The world seemed calm. Yet inside Tu Diep's chest a strange unease stirred. Little Nee's laughter had been echoing through the yard only moments ago, mingling with the smell of freshly cut bamboo and the soft crackle of the cooking fire. But now silence, a silence so sharp it made her breath catch. She called Nee's name once, then again, her voice growing urgent as the sun dipped lower. When no small footsteps answered, her heart began to race. James returned from the village store with a bag of rice under one arm, only to find Tu Diep running barefoot through the yard, her hair disheveled, her voice trembling. "She's not here, James. She was just playing near the garden, and now she's gone." His heart, trained for boardroom battles and high-stakes deals, faltered in the face of this primal fear. The man who had built empires with logic and power suddenly felt helpless. They searched everywhere: the garden, the fields where the bamboo swayed, the quiet stream where Nee liked to skip stones. The neighbors joined them, lanterns flickering like tiny stars in the growing darkness. Each shadow cast by the trees seemed a cruel trick of the night. Tu Diep's hands shook as she clutched Nee's small scarf, the last piece of her daughter's warmth. James wrapped an arm around her shoulders, whispering reassurances. He barely believed himself. News of Nee's disappearance reached the village quickly. Lan and Bao, Nee's blood relatives who had recently reappeared, arrived breathless and panicked. Old grievances dissolved in an instant. The ties of shared love for the same child united them all. Even James's stern father, who had opposed adopting Nee, sent word that he was on his way. The farmhouse that had once been filled with laughter now throbbed with worrying and prayer. Through the long night, rain began to fall, turning the dirt path slick and treacherous. James refused to stop searching, his clothes soaked, his flashlight beam cutting through the storm. He thought of Nee's small voice singing lullabies, of her wide eyes filled with trust. "Please," he whispered to the night sky, "if there is any mercy in this world, bring her back." Tu Diep, kneeling beneath the eaves of the house, pressed her palms together and prayed silently, tears mixing with the rain. She had always believed in small miracles: a sprouting seed, a kind smile from a stranger, the day James had walked into her life. Now she begged for the greatest miracle of all. Just before dawn, when hope had begun to fray, a faint sound drifted through the trees. A weak, high-pitched cry. James froze, straining to hear. Tu Diep gasped. They followed the sound, slipping through the mud, hearts hammering. There, beneath a cluster of bamboo, they found Nee curled up. Shivering but safe, she had wandered too far chasing a firefly, lost her way, and taken shelter under the grove when the rain came. Tu Diep swept Nee into her arms, sobbing with relief. James wrapped his coat around the child, holding them both as though anchoring them to the earth itself. Lan and Bao arrived moments later, their tears mingling with laughter as they joined the embrace under the first pale light of morning. The bamboo grove no longer looked menacing, it shimmered like a guardian. Back at the farmhouse, as Nee sipped warm milk and drifted to sleep between them, James and Tu Diep exchanged a look that held 1,000 unspoken promises. The miracle they had prayed for had come, not through wealth or influence, but through the unyielding power of love and community. The fear of losing Nee had revealed something deeper: that their fragile, imperfect family was bound not by blood or circumstance, but by a devotion that no storm or darkness could ever erase. The morning sun rose gently over the hills, casting a golden glow across the drenched fields, as though nature itself wanted to wash away the terror of the previous night. Inside the farmhouse, the air was warmer, calmer, and filled with the soft sound of baby Nee's breathing. Tu Diep sat beside her, brushing strands of damp hair from the little girl's forehead, still unable to believe that Nee was safe in her arms again. Every tiny movement Nee made a sigh. A twitch of her fingers felt like a gift Tu Diep would never take for granted again. James stood near the window, his soaked boots forgotten by the door, watching the bamboo grove sway in the breeze. His thoughts wandered to the moment he had heard Nee's faint cry, a sound that would stay etched in his heart forever. For all his influence and power, he realized he had been just as small and powerless as any other man in that storm. The miracle had not been in his wealth or his ability to control situations, it had been in hope, in love, and in the hands of the people who had joined them in the dark. Lan and Bao prepared a modest breakfast in the kitchen, their movements quiet and deliberate, as though any loud noise might disturb the fragile peace that had returned. When they placed a bowl of steaming porridge on the table, Lan's eyes glistened. Last night, she whispered to Tu Diep, "I thought we had already lost her twice, once when fate tore us apart, and again when she disappeared, but seeing her safe now, it feels like she belongs to all of us." Tu Diep took Lan's hand, squeezing it with quiet strength. "She does. She belongs to every heart that loves her." Later that day, the villagers came by, offering warm smiles, blankets, and gentle pats on Nee's head. The community that had searched through the storm lingered to share stories, laughter slowly replacing the fear. James, though exhausted, made sure to thank each person personally. His usual composed demeanor softened by gratitude. Even his father, who had arrived at dawn, stood silently by the doorway for a long while before placing a steady hand on his son's shoulder. It was not an apology, but it was a start. As the sun dipped again, painting the sky in fiery hues, Tu Diep carried me outside to watch the fireflies dance over the wet grass. James joined them. Slipping his arm around Tu Diep's waist, Nee, wrapped in a blanket, rested her head against Tu Diep's chest and murmured, "I wasn't really scared, because I knew you would find me." Tears welled in Tu Diep's eyes, and James swallowed the lump in his throat. The night settled softly around them, and for the first time in days, their world felt whole. They knew challenges still waited: the tension with James's father, the delicate balance with Nee's blood relatives, the unpredictable twists of life, but the terror of losing Nee had given them a new perspective. They had faced the darkness and found light in each other. In that quiet moment, surrounded by bamboo and the hum of crickets, James and Tu Diep understood something profound. Family wasn't defined by circumstance or perfection. It was forged in storms, in prayers whispered to the night, in the willingness to fight for one another. And as baby Nee drifted to sleep once more, her tiny hand curled trustingly around Tu Diep's finger, they knew that miracles were not rare. They lived in the everyday courage to love, to hope, and to hold on. The days that followed were filled with a gentle kind of healing. The farmhouse, once shadowed by whirring, now echoed again with baby Nee's laughter. She ran barefoot through the garden, her small hands reaching for butterflies, as if the world had never frightened her. But for Tu Diep and James, the memory of that night clung to their hearts like a reminder of how fragile happiness could be. James found himself watching Nee more closely, his usual focus on business slipping as he realized how easily all his plans could have crumbled. He would sit on the porch in the evenings, Nee curled up beside him with a picture book, and think about the empire he had built: the deals, the power, the money. None of it mattered compared to the warmth of this little girl's hand against his arm. One afternoon, Lan and Bao arrived unexpectedly. Their expressions were softer now. Humbled by what they had witnessed, Bao cleared his throat awkwardly before speaking. "James, Tu Diep, I know we were hesitant about you raising her. We thought blood ties meant everything, but last night, out there in the storm, I saw something else. I saw how you love her, how you didn't stop searching, even when hope was fading." His voice cracked. "We were wrong to doubt you." Tu Diep's eyes brimmed with tears, but her smile was steady. "We were all afraid," she said gently, "but fear doesn't have to divide us." She reached out, placing a hand over Bao's. "She's part of you too. We don't want to erase that." The words broke a wall that had been silently standing between them. Lan stepped forward, touching Nee's cheek. "Then let us be part of her life, not to take her from you, but to love her alongside you." That evening, they shared a meal together under the soft glow of lanterns. Nee, too young to understand the complicated threads of family and forgiveness, giggled as she tried to feed James a spoonful of rice. The adults laughed, and for the first time, the air between them felt light. Later, when the others had left and the house was quiet, James and Tu Diep stood by the window, watching the moon rise over the fields. James slipped his arm around her shoulders. "You know," he said softly, "we could have lost her forever, but maybe this was meant to remind us how precious every moment is." Tu Diep leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. "I used to think miracles were rare," she whispered. "But maybe they're everywhere, hidden in the people who refuse to give up on each other." Outside, the bamboo grove rustled in the breeze, as if the world itself was agreeing. And in the quiet of that night, with Nee sleeping peacefully in the next room, James and Tu Diep felt a deep certainty whatever storms the future might bring, their love, their courage, and their chosen family would carry them through. The following week brought a sense of calm to the farmhouse, but beneath the surface, unspoken thoughts stirred. James had returned to his office in the city, the weight of unfinished business and looming decisions heavy on his shoulders. Yet, even as he signed contracts and discussed numbers with his team, flashes of Nee's frightened face that stormy night haunted him. He realized he could no longer live as though his work and his family were two separate worlds. One evening, after a long day of meetings, James drove back earlier than usual. As he turned onto the familiar dirt road leading home, he saw Tu Diep and Nee in the garden. Tu Diep's dress fluttered in the evening breeze, her laughter mingling with Nee's as they picked vegetables for dinner. For a moment, he simply watched them, his heart swelling with quiet gratitude. Inside, over a simple meal of rice and sautéed greens, James spoke softly. "Tu Diep, I've been thinking. All these years, I've been chasing success, building something so big, I thought it would protect us. But that night," he paused, his voice thick with emotion. "That night showed me how quickly everything can slip away. I don't want to miss the small things anymore. Nee's stories, your laughter, even the way the wind sounds in the bamboo." Tu Diep reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. "You've always protected us in your own way, James, but maybe what protects us most isn't walls or money. It's this." She glanced toward Nee, who was humming to herself as she built towers out of rice grains. "It's being here, together." James nodded, a promise forming silently in his heart. The next morning, the farmhouse buzzed with visitors again. Lan and Bao returned, this time with small gifts for Nee, a handmade wooden flute and a soft blanket. They joined the family for breakfast, and the air was light with easy conversation. Even James's father arrived, his stern expression softened by Nee's bright giggles. He crouched down beside her, handing her a small toy boat. "You're braver than most grown men," he murmured, his voice low but tender. As the days passed, the bonds between them all deepened. The neighbors, who had searched through the storm, continued to stop by, bringing stories and laughter. Nee would run to the gate to greet them, her once lost little heart now surrounded by a wide circle of love. One night, as the family gathered on the porch beneath a blanket of stars, Nee clambered onto James's lap and whispered, "When I was in the bamboo, I could see the stars through the leaves. I thought they were watching me, showing me the way back." James hugged her tightly, his throat tightening. "Maybe they were, little one. Maybe they always are." Tu Diep leaned her head on his shoulder, her hand resting over Nee's. The breeze stirred the bamboo, and the world seemed to sigh with contentment, for the first time in a long time. James felt no need to chase the horizon. The miracle they had longed for had already come, not just in finding Nee, but in discovering the strength of their love, the resilience of their family, and the quiet magic hidden in an ordinary night beneath the stars. The story of baby Nee's disappearance teaches us profound lessons about love, unity, and the fragility of life. In the darkest hour, when fear gripped Tu Diep and James, their wealth, status, and past conflicts meant nothing. What mattered was their unwavering love for a small child and their determination to protect her. It reminds us that family is not always defined by blood, but by the people who choose to stand by each other, even when the storm rages. The way the community came together, neighbors searching through the rain, Lan and Bao setting aside old grievances, James's father quietly offering support, reveals that compassion can bridge even the deepest divides. In moments of crisis, pride and resentment fade, leaving only the shared humanity that binds us all. It also teaches the importance of cherishing small, ordinary moments: a child's laughter, a shared meal, the sound of wind in the trees. Life can change in a heartbeat, and the things we often overlook, time with loved ones, a kind gesture, a whispered promise, are what truly give life meaning. Finally, this story reminds us that miracles are not always grand or supernatural. Sometimes, a miracle is a faint cry in the night, a neighbor's lantern cutting through the darkness, or a hand reaching out when hope begins to fade. Baby Nee's return was not just a rescue, it was a revelation that even in the most uncertain times, love and unity can light the way home.